We're hoping to get Vanessa Phelps back for more big questions shortly, because you've sent in some amazing questions. But first, it's the B Block, our brand new section where some of our favourite GB News commentators have the chance to sound off on an issue important to them that's often been ignored by the rest of the media. And the SNP are about to sign a game-changing deal to govern with the Scottish Greens. And the mainstream media have responded with a collective shrug. A cooperation agreement with the Radical Party, who supports Scottish independence and rejoining the EU and want to introduce a 4-day work week, decriminalise sex work, ban plastic within 4 years and allow abortions at home, is set to be announced this week. That's despite increased concern within the SNP about teaming up with the Greens, and not just because of their policies. Former Greens SNP Andy Whiteman described the party as having a censorious, bullying and intimidatory culture in a row over gender recognition, already a point of contention among the nationalists. With me to break this down further is Darren Grimes. So Darren, Nicola Sturgeon's getting in bed with these extremist Greens and no one seems to be talking about it.
Absolutely, it's extraordinary, really. I mean, just for viewers at home, Scotland's electoral system, not unlike New Zealand's, Dan, it encourages coalition buildings, right? It encourages parties working together like this and being unable to form outright majorities. Now, if you consider the Parliament of 2010 to 2015, when we had a Con Lib government, Conservative and Liberal Democrat, the level of scrutiny that was applied to that coalition, there's hardly anything going on like that in Scotland, where you've got this cooperation deal potentially taking place. And I imagine that many viewers at this point are saying, well, what's the problem? You know, who cares? But it's just so important. I really, really think it is, because it's scrutiny, accountability, and frankly, tolerance of dissent is a fundamental part of any functioning democracy. They are key tenets of any healthy and vibrant democracy. And Scotland is supposed to be this sort of bedrock of enlightenment. And I'm afraid that's gone completely out of the equation at this point. And that's, I think, all you put to one side. How nuts it is, I think, for the SNP, by the way, a party I'm not naturally supportive of, but a party that supposedly champions a dynamic Scottish economy, post-COVID and post-independence, with a sort of tartan-clad Nicola Sturgeon saying they need independence to help Scotland recover from the pandemic, would be willing to hop into a bed with a party that reckons we should do away with economic growth and Scotland should accept misery and squalor and all of those really extreme policy proposals that you set out at the top there. But Dan, there are fascinating tales of infighting on both sides of this would-be coalition. You've got former member of the Scottish Parliament for the Scottish Greens, Andy Whiteman, as you say, writing this blog post accusing the Scottish Greens of bullying and intimidation, and the SNP MP, Joanna Cherry QC, on the other side of the political pond, saying that actually the SNP's complaints officer targeted her on Twitter. The two things being related in the sense that they're both related to the heated trans debate. Apparently, believing in biological sex as immutable fact means that you're not worthy of parliamentary representation around the table of the Greens and the SNP. Now, focusing on the Green side, Mr. Whiteman seems to be viewed as a bigot, and a transphobic bigot at that, for daring to attend a public meeting at Edinburgh University where people disagreed. They dared to disagree with the Green Party's views on this, their radical views, it has to be said, denying biological truth and reality in the trans debate. And the leader of the party then demanded he apologise. He didn't. He was also warned against supporting a parliamentary amendment that would allow the victims of sexual crimes to insist on being examined by a doctor of the same sex as opposed to the same gender. So someone self-identifying as a bloke or a woman, can't just say, okay, well, I can examine this individual. And he was told that he was biologically essentialist, whatever that means. And at this point, I think it becomes clear that Whiteman, he says, it couldn't work in an environment as censorious, bullying and intimidatory as that one. Now, Dan, I think the fundamental point here to take away is that it's becoming quite clear that there are so many radical and frankly quite extreme positions on both the SNP and the Green side, not just sidelining the rights of women, not just sidelining that belief in biological sex, in a man and a woman being a mutable fact, but in so many other ways as well. You mentioned some of them there, as far as abortion's concerned, and all these other issues where dissenting voices, primarily women, are being silenced, but of course also Andy Whiteman as well, who actually left the party at that point. And I say this without even considering all of the other anti-growth, anti-aspiration, pro-poverty and pro, I guess, squalor that is being advocated by this party that would see Scotland, I think, sacrificed on the altar of the Green. And Dan, what gets me, what breaks my heart, because I love Scotland, is that there's precious little scrutiny of any of this going on.
And that's the fault of the Scottish media, though. And that's why Sturgeon has got through this the way that she has, because the Scottish media, and actually the UK media too, the UK broadcast media has always treated Nicola Sturgeon with kid gloves as well. So I think you're completely right that there hasn't been scrutiny on Sturgeon for a very long time, but there also has been no scrutiny about the fact that she's going to sign a very significant coalition agreement with a significantly odd and extreme party. But I think what's interesting, though, Darren, is a lot of people in the SNP are uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, they are, exactly. And I mean, going back to the Joanna Cherry QC point, right? She is a member of the Queen's Council. She is Silk. And she has been sidelined from within her own party for daring to have views around the sex-based rights of women, for example. And you just start to think all of these things where dissenting voices, freedom of speech, freedom, the ability to actually disagree with your colleagues, never mind your political opponents, these are colleagues, just isn't allowed to happen in Scotland. And I stress that point again, the bedrock of the Enlightenment movement, right? The home of Adam Smith and people like this, these Scottish giants of old. You're not allowed to have dissenting views and opinion. And you've got them coming up with all of these new hate crime bills and all the rest of it. This government, I've got no doubt, would be one of the most authoritarian and anti-free speech and freedom that we've seen on these islands in, well, certainly my lifetime.
No, indeed. Darren Grimes, very well put. Thank you for joining us for tonight's B Block.